the throw, fire, and down! Incomplete, down at the goal line by San Diego! Tomlinson, off the left side, Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. I think they have to now. Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
What's up, good people? Craig, Garrett here. Jamie couldn't make it, but two of us going to hold it down. We've got a couple things we're going to do. We are going to talk about a couple new free agent acquisitions that we haven't had a chance to touch on yet. So we'll get into those two moves. And then schedule just got released. We got to see the Sims video. And then we're going to break down each game. We're going to go through all 17 of them, talk about the bye week. We're going to do our way too early record prediction before they even take a snap in camp together. And we're going to then give you what we think the overall record will be right away. But Craig, what's up? How you feeling today?
I'm good, man. I've been super busy with work and all this other stuff going on. Of course, we finally came down off of our draft high, but now we're rolling into the schedule and then, off-season stuff. So it's going to slow down a bit, but we're going to keep the ball rolling. So feeling good overall.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we took a little time off after the draft, but we're back at it. And we're going to have a lot more to talk about pretty soon here with training camp rolling in. So first thing, Chargers drafted, of course, 3 wide receivers. And then after the draft, they weren't done. They went in the bargain bin, came out with DJ Chark. Craig, how are you feeling? Thoughts on Chark in this wide receiver room?
Man, so Daryl DeMont Chark Jr. His mama named him Daryl. I'm going to call him Daryl. No, for real. DJ is what we all know him as. But I mean,
he has 2 D names. Is Daryl DeMont?
Yeah. I mean, so it's weird. I mean, he's a junior, so whatever. But yeah, when I saw that, I never realized it was Daryl DeMont. I knew his first name was Daryl. I didn't know where the DeMont came in. So I don't know if that's middle. I'm guessing middle name, but yeah, whatever. So anywho, the Joe Ortiz experience. We've been, going through it here for a few short months, and this is just another one of those guys that help to add to a collection of players that add quality depth to a team and provide an element that they have been sorely lacking in for years. The goal was to get younger and faster, and Chark definitely fits the bill there. It's like a 1-year deal up to around like $5 million, so not a bunch. Definitely a prove it type situation. Really like that, again, me being a Louisiana kid, staying close to LSU, got to see him really come on during his senior campaign at LSU, kind of really turned himself into a true deep threat there in the last 2 years, but specifically in senior year. I mean, the kid had 22 yards per reception average that year. And that's somewhat carried over into his professional career. Right now, he's averaged around 15 yards per catch through 6 years as a pro. Some like up and down years. Some of it has to do with injury, other things like, poor QB situations, but we're past that now. He's in a much better situation overall. Ran a 4.3 40. So again, low 4.3 40, something the team needed sorely. I mean, you got a 4.3 guy in the draft with McConkey, but Chark is what's going to solidify. Well, he should solidify himself as a true deep threat, which is not what I consider McConkey to be, even though he is a Blazer. He also primarily has played X throughout his career. Another position that the Chargers haven't really, with what they currently have on the roster, save like some of the guys they got in the draft, any proven guys to play the X position. Josh Palmer could do a little bit of it. He can actually play a little bit of everything. But if you want a true X, DJ kind of plays that position and has throughout his career so far. Like I said before, he's a vet, but not super old. He'll be 28 going into week 4, I believe. So also, with all the good things, there are a couple bad. I mean, the dude did have an issue with drops, specifically last year. I believe he had like 5. He even had 2 fumbles. So he's got to definitely be better at holding on to the ball. He's dealt with a few injuries over the past few seasons, and he hasn't had a 1,000-yard receiving year since 2019 with the Jags. So, again, he could also be a better route runner, But here's a sneaky thing about his game. He's actually a pretty decent contested catch guy. He finished just outside of the top 5 in that regard for that metric last season. So overall, I like what he brings to the team. Again, he brings an element of a deep threat that they were lacking. And maybe he can relive some of that 2019 magic now that he has a real quarterback to throw him the ball.
Yeah, you love these veteran depth signings after the draft. This being one of them. So yeah, like what Craig mentioned, we had a 1,000-yard season from DJ Chark in 19. He followed it up with a 700-yard season in 2020. He got injured in 21, and then he followed up in Detroit and Carolina with 500 yards receiving in both his stops. And for comparison, the Chargers wide receiver 2 last year, Joshua Palmer, had 581 yards receiving. So if you think about that as a guy who's competing for wide receiver 3 at best, maybe wide receiver 4 type depth, would get dropped into a wide receiver 2 role just last year without Mike Williams. This is a nice little depth signing. He's got some downfield speed. The Chargers could obviously use. Love his footwork. His route running, is inconsistent at times. The hands are obviously an issue, like you mentioned, but this is just a signing that's just going to push these 3 rookie receivers. And not only that, but also push Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnston, because this is a proven 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL, one of which the Chargers do not have on the roster. So albeit it's 4 years removed from that 1,000-yard season, but they've got one on the roster, and that's DJ Chark. So not only is it good depth for the wide receiver room, which was kind of lacking before the draft, but it also just helps push every single guy on that roster up. And, this competition in camp with wide receivers is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And DJ Chark kind of being I was going to say the shark, which baby Chark is obviously a thing that's going to happen in stadiums, but kind of being that guy that's going to be nipping onto everybody's heels in camp and pushing everybody. You could see him, get a role on this offense pretty easily. And I think that was probably part of the reason why he got sold on it late in this free agent process.
Yeah. And I mean, to add to all of this, there's a theme here. Like Chark joins former Panthers Hayden Hurst and Bradley Bozeman along with a couple former Ravens and Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, and they're fully forming the Kara Moore Angeles Chargers. Apparently, this is a thing. So we'll see throughout the rest of the offseason if anyone else from the Ravens or Carolina gets picked up. Although I would much rather be Ravens players because I've had my fill of Carolina
guys. Definitely. So then right after that, the Chargers go out and sign another veteran, and it's the veteran edge rusher. It is Bud Dupree. Now, the Chargers, we know, have Khalil Mack. They've got Joey Bosa. They've got Tuli Tulopu already. Adding Bud Dupree as an edge 4 is really a win-win. We just talked about how DJ Chark's going to help push everybody else on this roster, but, this improves your depth. You can now rotate Bosa, Mack, Tuli, Dupree, keep everybody fresh. You can even add some NASCAR packages where you can see 3 of those guys on the field at the same time, just to add some gas on a 3rd and long to get after the quarterback or something. But this is a real nice signing late. He kind of peaked towards the end of his time in Pittsburgh, had some injury troubles in Tennessee, and then came back in Atlanta fully healthy, had 6.5 sacks last season. And when you think about how great Tuli was in his rookie season, he had 4.5 sacks. So already 2.5 sacks better than Tuli. I talked about Chark being dumped in as wide receiver 2. This is a guy that would be edge 2 as of last year with the injuries to this edge group. But, you're just adding Dupree, who's coming off an even better year, to a group which now, quite honestly, when you look at this roster, you've got Chris Rumph, who's kind of got an uphill battle to make that 53. So now you're creating depth in the middle and bottom of your roster, and you're kind of help pushing those guys that are kind of on the fringe to, Chris Rumph is really going to have to show out for them to keep a 5th linebacker. So if he does, great. The competition wins and you've got a stronger roster and you're developing a young cat. But with a guy like Dupree, who signed for 2 years, $6 million, this is really, really nice. Dupree was actually leaning towards going back to Pittsburgh after the draft, but Harbaugh sold him real hard on teaming up with guys like Bosa and Mack, and that ultimately swayed Dupree. So already we talked about how people are going to want to play for these guys, for a Joe Ortiz and a Jim Harbaugh. And you're seeing it right now. Late guys, veterans like Bud Dupree was thinking about going back home to Pittsburgh where he's familiar, decides, no, man, I want to play with Harbaugh. I want to play with Mack. I want to play with Thule. I want to play with Bosa. So getting depth like this with DJ Chark and Bud Dupree, this really improves the middle and bottom of your roster. It pushes competition in camp, and it's really nothing but help elevate everybody on the roster, which hasn't happened in a very, very long time.
Chargers fans, are you ready for this? It's a novel concept, quality depth. I know it's not something that we've become accustomed to, but we have new leadership and they value it. And it's nice to have this be something that they're implementing for a change and not just be, getting lip service about it. Alvin, Bud Dupree, I'm doing full names this episode.
All right.
So Bud has always been a high level, elite, freaky type athlete, like even back to his Kentucky days. So not much of a technician. It's never really been his thing throughout his career thus far. The production hasn't ever consistently matched up to his physical attributes, but he still does have some juice even at 31. And I'm even going to give him a pass for basically disappearing in what amounts to like NFL edge rusher Siberia in Atlanta. They can't ever seem to get that position right for some reason, but I digress. Yeah, like you mentioned, man, he did have some production there last year, 6.5 sacks. And, he's only had 53 over a 9-year season or a 9-year career. But in 2019, he did have 11.5. So he showed that he can put it together and produce as like an above average QB accoster. So it's going to be nice to have him in the mix there with that 4-man tandem. I mean, walking into his edge room, he definitely feels like the 4th best edge behind Thule, even though Thule kind of hit a little bit of a rookie wall last year, but he is a top level edge setter and is developing as a pass rusher as well. So I'd still slide him in behind Thule, but man, like this is still one hellacious 4-man rotation. Like what this move also does is provide like more adequate coverage if one of your top 3 guys goes down at any point. Not sure what this means for young Chris Rumpf, but he's going to have to come of age like this summer if he wants a shot at sticking around. And I don't know what he qualifies as this year. Like it was a string bean.
Yep.
Was it, I don't know, asparagus, whatever he is this year. Yeah. I guess broccoli has a little bit thicker stalk. So
yes.
Got the Sideshow Bob haircut too.
Yeah.
Looks like broccoli. Wait, I'm thinking of, what's the kid cartoon like of my kids used to watch it? What was it? Like one of the cartoon characters was a piece of broccoli. Whatever. This is what happens after you.
It's not. Is it VeggieTales?
VeggieTales. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
He looks like a VeggieTales character.
Yeah. So, Chris Rumpf has had his time here, hasn't produced, and now he's got. He's on the outside looking in with Bud Dupree added as a 4th edge rusher. And you just love the ability of having, Bosa, who's been banged up a lot, Khalil Mack, who's been banged up throughout his career, Thule, who's still, young and growing and stuff, and being able to kind of rotate those guys, keep those legs fresh, keep that energy on the field, and just have a 4-headed monster rushing the quarterback from down to down basis where, we're accustomed to Bosa's out and now they're in trouble. They got lucky that Thule came in last year and produced, but every year before that, one edge rusher goes down, Melvin Ingram goes down, it's only Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa goes down, it's only Melvin Ingram, nobody else on the other side to help. But now you've got a 3rd and a 4th guy to help out and pitch in. This is very quality depth. Telesco was very good at a top-heavy roster that underperformed and got injured. And then once that happened, it all went to pot for the Charger team, and it happened in year in and year out. And you can say if any of these 4 guys get injured, you've got 3 guys right behind them that can produce, and it's great to have this kind of depth.
Also think Bud is better served as like a Robin to someone's Batman. So like, him playing across some TJ Watt definitely helped him out a ton. Again, he's a larger guy as well. I think Bud somewhere in between 260 and 270, if I'm not mistaken. So he's not a small edge rusher, and he can still really move. Again, he's over 30 at this point, but I think he has enough to be effective here in a rotational role over the next couple of years if they do go ahead and honor like the 2nd year of that deal. I do also think it's interesting that they gave him 2 years as well. But when you consider the fact that, you're looking at potentially both Bosa and Mac maybe being gone after this year, it's an opportunity to kind of help keep at least two of those guys around while they build for the next generation of pass rushers. And I think Bud's going to be an excellent complement if he does stick around for year two, when Thule probably takes over as your number one edge guy.
Yeah. Proven edge two. He's never the guy. He's never been an edge one. And, he kind of peaked towards the end of his time in Pittsburgh, like I talked about. And then he got that big contract with Tennessee. He was then the guy and really couldn't produce under that, was injured. And then becoming the guy outside in Atlanta, being the edge two, edge three, was able to pick back up. And now you're looking at him as edge four on this roster. You got to love it.
Hellified depth, man. Something that we've been begging for a really long time. And again, man, let's be honest. We're hoping that Joey comes in and plays a mostly healthy year. But in the event that he does go down, you have someone that you feel very confident in, still just being in the rotation. You're not just down to two guys where defense can focus on maybe doubling one, and you don't have to worry about Thule now being in year two, again, hitting that rookie wall and regressing a little bit, or maybe not producing as high of a level as he was earlier in the year as a rusher. You still have three really significant guys that can get after the QB.
Yep. So we got the signings, DJ Chark, wide receiver. You got the edge rusher, Bud Dupree. And now today, what everybody, I think, is mostly here for is a schedule release. So the schedule looks as so. We've got week 1. We'll go through all this. It looks like there's a bye at 5, but let's just let's take it game by game. We'll leave this up here so you can see the schedule as we talk about it. And so, Craig, let's talk about week 1. So week 1, they are at home and they get the Raiders. How are you feeling about this game? Tell me about the Raiders and then what you got, a win or loss here.
Man, you got to walk into Vegas and go smack Tom and company around. And I like Antonio Pierce, but he's going to get baptized by fire here as his first game as the legit head coach of the Vegas Raiders. And they made some moves this offseason. And then Tom does what Tom does in the draft. But there's no way, even going to their house, that you can come out with the loss there. I think the Chargers are going to have a point to prove. You got some leftover players that really probably are going to want to stick it to Telesco. But also, I just feel like, Jim's probably going to have a game plan to where he shows them that now we're the nasty team now. The Raiders have historically been known for being like the mean cusses of the NFL, but I think it's a changing of the guard here. And Jim goes in week 1 and shows everybody exactly what this, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, what this offense is going to be about. And I think they bludgeoned the Raiders into submission. So clearly I got them winning week 1.
Yeah. So White, if nobody understands, thanks for the heads up, Richie. Yeah, so White means home, yellow means on the road. Just
apologies,
just at
home. Yeah, so it's definitely not happening at SoFi. Apologies.
Yep. So just so you guys know, and of course I cut it off where it says that down here. So that's not Craig, that's me. All right, so there you go. That's better. All right, so it's going to be Gardner Minshew or it's going to be Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. They're going to battle it out, but neither really moved the needle much at all. The Raiders absolutely had to draft a rookie quarterback. They did not. Telesco allocated all his free agent money to one player, Christian Wilkins. He went out and drafted a tight end 2 at 13 overall, and this team has no identity. It is basically just the Devontae Adams show, who can still get 100 catches and 1,000 yards no matter who the quarterback is. I mean, he's an automatic, wide receiver 1 on your fantasy team every single time. But this is a divisional game. It'll be tight. But I just think from Telesco going over there, there's some, extra motive. The thing that every Charger fan and every single Charger player, even the Charger account, got tweeted by Illuminor, I think it was today, about the beating they had on a Thursday night against a backup quarterback in Easton Stick, and the irony of having a GM go to the other side, but nobody talk about that. Always is very thick in that conversation. Nobody ever mentions Justin Herbert not being there, but whatever it is, everybody knows about it. Current, former every Charger in that building knows about the SmackDown they had. And this is going to come out of the gates, set a tone. This is a new regime. They have all the added kind of weapons and, every kind of, everything's building and it's all there for them. So they've got everything at their disposal here and they're going to use it. And I think they end up beating the Raiders too at home. So this is a win for me in week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. Get the Raiders the hell out of here. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the game, man. If you're gloating about a game in which multiple players were out, the starting quarterback didn't play, I mean, I guess you got to find your victories where you can. I mean, again, a win is a win, but I mean, I know context doesn't mean anything. They probably don't understand the definition of context. I would not be shocked. But, hey, glad you got it. Now, come on back home so we can go ahead and lay the smack down on you. And then I guess we'll have a new story to talk about. Or maybe you'll still be, resting on that win that nobody cares about or have anything to say about after this season. But, whatever. Do what you gotta do.
I know they can fight about that online, but that got the Chargers the 5th overall pick, and so or helped them get there.
Also, yeah, absolutely, and probably played a part in them getting Jim Harbaugh as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So thank you, Raiders. All right, next up, week 2. Yeah, because that game, got people fired. All right, week 2. So they travel to Carolina. They play the Panthers. Now this franchise is a mess. This team also a mess. Didn't have a first-round pick, but traded into the first round to get Xavier Legette. I mean, this team needs another bad season, if not 2 bad seasons, to at least get back in the conversation of being around average. This is not a good team. And so I think the Chargers helped them early on with that draft slot, beat them in Carolina. Chargers win. I don't know that this is going to be even all that close.
You know what? I just want to beat them for what they did to Frank Reich, man. That was disrespectful. You couldn't even give man a full season with that rookie QB. You set him up for failure.
Yeah,
but I guess you had to have a fall guy. So
and he is getting paid a lot of money to sit in home.
This is true. Yes, I don't feel too bad for him. Man. Definitely well off. So Frank, enjoy your Mai Tais, and if you decide to come back into the league one day, great. If not, go find somewhere to spend all that bread. But Carolina, terrible. I don't even know who their head coach is. It was the first time I'd even heard of the guy when he got hired. Never heard the name before. It feels like a front office that's been, it is. It's a team that's being run by a maniac. It all makes sense. So, Mr. Tepper, thank you again. Thank you for this dub. We'll appreciate it. We'll walk into your stadium, slap you around, and go home with a smile on our faces. And you can, I guess, settle in for the 2025 draft.
Yeah. It's Canales, right? They hired David Canales.
I don't even remember.
Okay,
Garrett.
all right. You still don't know who it is. Yeah, they can go to another restaurant and go Acosta manager for any side, whatever, after they lose when they
pour beer on fans or whatever.
Yeah.
That dude is insane.
I know. They've got one of the worst owners in the league for sure. Yeah. And it shows because this team is bad and they don't look like they're going to get good anytime soon. So they don't have the firepower to really compete with the Chargers. I think a lot of these games are going to be competitive. I even think the Raiders game is probably going to be competitive. I mean, it's a divisional rival. I think it's going to be close. I think the Chargers still win that game in week 1, but with the Panthers, I don't know that it's going to be anywhere near close enough.
Poor Bryce Young.
So, I know.
Poor Bryce Young.
I know. It's all about where you go, and Bryce Young did not go to a good spot. So week 3. So back-to-back road games. They travel to Pittsburgh. They play the Steelers. How are you feeling, Craig?
This one, I don't feel great about. On the road after 1, like you mentioned, week 1's probably going to be a little bit more physical than week 2 will be. I'm not sure how I feel about the Pittsburgh game, number 1 being on the road, and I think the offense is still going to be finding its groove a little bit. You're going to run up against a couple of these teams that pride themselves on stopping the run. I think Pittsburgh is going to be a little bit better about that this year. So we're going to start finding more about the passing game and how that's developing. And I do think the offense is going to take a little while to hit its stride to become more balanced all the way around. I could see them losing a close one in Pittsburgh. I don't think it's going to be something that's embarrassing or where the Steelers walk all over them, but I do have them walking out with the loss this week.
Okay. Yeah, so Chargers get Russell Wilson again, this time in a Steelers uniform. They're going to be in Pittsburgh. Steelers really solidified their offensive line in the draft. I really like what they did with the O-line. But of course they've got, behind that, a declining Najee Harris, toting the rock. And then they only really added Roman Wilson to the wide receiver room when they lost Deontay Johnson. So even with that said, it feels like Mike Tomlin is always tough at home. And to me, I'm with you, Craig. It feels like they're on the road. They got to play Pittsburgh, which is going to be a tough environment to be in. And then in week 4, you've got the one team that everybody's talking about. You come to the AFC West, you got to go through Mahomes. And Mahomes is the week after. This feels like it's also the Steelers home opener, as Jason P says in the chat. So it's the home opener for the Steelers. So they're going to be rowdy and loud. But also, it feels like a trap game. They're looking towards week 4. They've got to play Kansas City. It's been hyped up everywhere. Everything goes through Mahomes and the Chiefs in the AFC West. And their first ever matchup is the week after. So I've got them losing this game too. So right now, they're coming off 2 wins. They're feeling good. Maybe don't take the Steelers as serious as they should. I think they lose this game at Pittsburgh. I got them 2-1 and then playing the Chiefs. So now, they should win this game against the Steelers, but it just feels like it's going to be a tough environment, and they end up losing this one. So now they play the back-to-back Super Bowl champs, the Kings of the AFC West. The Chiefs kept most of the roster intact. They lost L'Jarius Sneed, which is big, but they added Hollywood Brown. They got Xavier Worthy to the wide receiver room. I'm not going to talk about any other players that they drafted in the draft, Craig, because I know that's going to be a soft spot for you.
You don't have to.
All right, I won't. I know you think about that often, but I just think the Chiefs are too talented. They're back-to-back Super Bowl champs for a reason. They didn't lose much other than L'Jarius Sneed, and they added to the wide receiver room. You give more firepower to that Chiefs offense, and I just think it's a recipe for disaster for the Chargers. So I've got them losing 2 in a row here, going 2-2 in the bye. They lose at home against the Chiefs.
So it's interesting that we're thinking along the same lines. So I'll start off by saying I have this as an L as well. But also, again, it's because I still think that it's not that they won't be up for the game. I just think that the offensive firepower of the Chiefs is going to take a little bit for the Chargers to adjust to. And I'm curious as to whether or not, if this turns into a game where they have to score with the Chiefs, if they'll be able to. And again, I mentioned this before. I alluded to it in the Pittsburgh game as far as the passing game is concerned. Now, I think the Chargers are going to be a team that will be looking to literally run teams into the ground. But in the event that you have to lean on that passing game, will you have guys that you can depend on at this point in the season to be able to do that? You're going to have a crap ton of wide receivers to select from. We'll see who makes it on the actual roster. But who's going to be Herbert's? Well, I actually take that back. I think one of the reasons why they may have, jettisoned Keenan was because they don't necessarily want Herbert to have a guy that he has to get the ball to or feels like he, has to use as a crutch. So let's see how comfortable he gets with the wide receiver room in totality. With that being said, Chiefs, I hate you for drafting Garrett Wiley. I know that you said you weren't going to mention it, Garrett, and I do appreciate it, but I do need to express my feelings. I'm not in therapy, but I do hear that you need to do things like that and not suppress those. So get that out, because you guys saw me on the live draft. I literally caught a Charlie horse, because of like in my muscles tensed up. I did legs that day, didn't hydrate properly, but that's how I felt about what they did. So you caused me pain, and I would love nothing more than to do the same to you guys in week 4. I just don't think it's going to happen then, but oh yes, there will be a second matchup, and I may have a different opinion about that one.
Good. All right. Good. So, and yeah, I do. I know that most people have mentioned this before, and I don't know that we've all taken it at face value, but it does feel like, Baltimore has never really had that wide receiver one. It's been a long time since they've had that. They've had a bunch of guys be pretty solid, and Lamar Jackson has been very good. And that might just be the philosophy here. We'll see how it is after, year 2, 3, and how they attack that wide receiver room going forward. But it might just be, hey, we don't need this big, 100 catch guy, 1,000-yard receiving dude. If we got 3 800-yard receiving guys and we go, 11-6, who cares? It's all about what you can do in the end in the win column. So yeah, it'll be interesting. So all right, so both you and I have them going 2-2. We're lined up exactly 2 wins. Go on a little slide here, lose 2 in a row, and then what the hell is going on?
Second year in a row.
How do the Chargers get stuck with a early bye again? Week 5? Like, football hasn't even started. They play for 1 month and then get a rest. Who needs a rest after a month of football? Nobody needs a rest that early. Put it in 11, 12, 13. Give me the rest late. Chargers going to have tired legs going into the home stretch of their season because this damn bye business again.
I don't understand the logic here, how this happens in back-to-back years, should I say. Because last season it was just kind of like, oh, crap, I guess they got, junk luck of the draw. Well, no, 2 years in a row, feels like something fishy's going on there. I ain't a conspiracy guy. Well, not really, but this feels awkward. And then you look at, kind of what they have after that, and we'll get into this run of games. I'm looking at some teams that I guess depending on where they are right now, speaking strictly offensively, may not really present the Chargers with a huge issue with when we're talking about stamina defensively and being able to keep the score low. I don't see a bunch of that, but it's still the fact of, like you mentioned, a month into the season, they're still going to be finding their groove, and you throw a bye in there. And typically what you want to take that opportunity to do is not just rest, but also recalibrate. If something isn't really working, you can make some adjustments. I feel like if you're 5 weeks through the season, teams are still kind of learning who you are, as are you. So making those in-season adjustments become a little bit more difficult when you have to have how many games is that left? Or is that week 5? So you got
as you're
13
counting 13 games,
more games,
yep,
13 games after that. So you got 13 games where you're going to have to go and make, at some point, teams are going to game plan and kind of figure out a little bit, both offensively and defensively. And I just think it puts them at a little bit of a disadvantage. So yeah, they're going to have to be locked and loaded for that long run, and guys are going to have to develop and come along. I just hope that they can stay healthy during that stretch, because if they do run into an injury here or there in some key situations, I'm sure Ortiz is going to do what he has to do to maybe bring guys in, also building that quality depth behind what already exists on the roster. But still, man, I feel like they got a raw deal with that one.
This analogy by Story is amazing. Bye in the 5th week is the equivalent of taking your lunch break at your 3rd hour of work. Whack. You're gonna take a lunch break in your 3rd hour and work 5 hours straight. Dumb. That is ridiculous. Did Justin Simmons? Did this just happen? Help me out, chat. Is he pretending or is this for real?
Or is he saying to sign Justin Simmons?
Yeah. Well, just let me know, chat. Anyway, yeah. I say it every year, but GMs, coaches, owners always talk about how the first 4 games you're feeling out what kind of team you have. There is no way to figure out who can play where you match up guys. You're not really playing your starters in the preseason anyway, and now it's kind of fast-tracked anyway in the preseason. Once you get together, everybody's trying to get the groove. Everybody's trying to figure each other out. You start to hit your groove after, towards the end of week 4-ish, know who you like, what matchups you like, and who plays well together. And then you go and hit the bye. Last year was just, it is what it is, but getting it 2 years in a row is ridiculous. That should not happen. It should be spread out. It should absolutely be spread out. And I do not get how you could have another bye in week 5 again. And we've spent the most time on a week 5 bye than we have on the 4 games combined. But go ahead, Craig.
I was curious. When is the Chiefs bye? I would really love to know when that is. If anyone in the chat knows,
you know what? You look up. Let's move on to week 6, and I'll look that up. So, bye sucks. Week 5, I hate it. It's like taking a lunch break in your 3rd hour of work, just like Story said.
Perfect analogy.
Week 6, Mile High against the Broncos.
Now, typically, I would feel like because it's Sean Payton and like Denver has been a mess since he got there, that means that they could walk into Mile High and do their thing and come out with a dub. And they very well might. But the only problem is it's freaking at Mile High. And the Chargers need to figure this out on a consistent basis. I don't think they'll have it in just yet. Now, this is like I gave them an L in this game, but I don't feel super confident about it. I also feel like there's a very real chance they can win it because of the fact that I don't know what the hell Denver is going to be. I do think Sean Payton got a little too big for his britches with taking over this team and the way that he's going about trying to rebuild it. We don't know what they're going to be from a passing standpoint. I mean, you know, they drafted what's his face from Oregon, Bo Nix, who I don't really see it with. I mean, I think he's more of a point guard quarterback, so he'll distribute the ball and get guys the pill in short areas and allow them to maybe make plays after the catch, short and intermediate portion of the field. I don't think they're going to be pushing the ball down the field deep too often. The wide receiver core does not scare me any longer. I just don't know who Denver is going to be overall. I know what Sean Payton's offenses have looked like in the past. Haven't watched the Saints for years. I just don't think he has all the requisite pieces to do what he did there and to have them be super successful. But again, it's at Mile High. So that's the only reason why I'm giving them a loss here. I know it's 3 straight. I really don't think it's going to happen. I just need proof that they can walk in a Mile High and win convincingly. And I just don't know that yet.
Yeah, I get that. And I looked it up, chat saying the same thing. Week 6 is the Chiefs bye. So right after Chargers.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is going to be a whole new look Broncos with Bo Nix at the helm. Also got Troy Franklin to help him out. And then between Nix, he's got Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Marvin Mims, now Franklin. That's just a bunch of dudes, much like the Chargers wide receiver room. But defensively, they're fine, but Bo Nix is bad. This is in the Brock Osweiler, Drew Lock type territory for me. It's just he's going to be good enough to get you a couple wins, but he's not going to get you anywhere. He has the arm talent. He's an athlete. The mechanics are a mess. His offense in Oregon, while watching him, it was catered to that kind of quick timing, quick hitters, because the longer Bo Nix had to stay in the pocket, the worse he got. And during the draft prep, my notes were his ceiling is Sam Howell. Like with the mobility and the arm talent, that's your ceiling. And Washington moved on from Howell after a year and a half. They're already on to Jaden Daniels. So all that to say, Chargers have had issues in Mile High. This would have been a loss for me as well in my record predictions in the past, but with Jim Harbaugh and against Bo Nix and how much I'm railing against Bo Nix, I'm not betting against the Chargers here. So Chargers get to win finally in Mile High. So I've got them winning this game. So I've got 3 wins. They're 3-2. You got them at 2-3. And then they go to Arizona for Monday night, the first primetime game of the season, week 7 in Arizona. And this is a team in transition. You know, they got Marvin Harrison Jr. We all know that. They drafted right before the Chargers. They signed Jonah Williams to play on the other side of Paris Johnson, but they still have a ton of holes on that roster. Not only that, not only just the kind of weak roster, Kyler Murray just hasn't really been himself the last 2 years. He went 3-8, got injured, came back from injury, went 3-5. I mean, the Cardinals had a top 5 pick for a reason. And it wasn't just because Kyler missed half the season. They're not really that good yet. And so for me, this is a win on the road for the Chargers. I was surprised to see them play the Cardinals in primetime because it doesn't feel like a fun matchup. I'm looking at some of these other games and I'm kind of thinking maybe I'd go a different route, but hey, they got first of their 3rd primetime games in Arizona. I got them winning this game and I got them winning 2 in a row after the bye. Craig, how you feeling?
Yeah, so Arizona is a really wonky team at this point. Like you mentioned, Kyler Murray, I'm not sure who he's going to be this year. I know he dealt with the injuries. It kept him out for a long period of time. And even when he played, just didn't really seem like he had it all together. you know, got Marvin Harrison Jr. now, so you definitely got a number one target and someone who should step in week one and be a difference maker. But I also like what they did in the draft. There were a couple of guys that I was a fan of that they picked up, like Adrian Taylor Demerson out of Texas Tech. I was a big fan of him. Max Melton as well. So they added a couple of guys in that secondary that can be playmakers. But again, I don't know that they have a true identity. If it's going to be to lean on the QB, then great. But just don't know if he's ready to be what he had been a couple of years ago. Kyler just is super streaky right now. And I do think having a number one target is going to help him. Got a decent tight end as well. The Cardinals don't scare me, though. I feel like they're going to be a lot of flash, not a ton of substance, and a team can probably go in there and just cram it down their throats in the run game. So I think that's exactly what's going to happen, and I have them getting that win after coming off of the loss to Denver that I had them the week prior.
All right, so I got them at 4-2 so far. You got them at 3-3, and it's perfect here now, lined up for Week 8 because now it's NOLA. It's your town. Chargers have the Saints at home at SoFi.
We get to make fun of Derek Carr again. Different uniform, man. It's gonna be all right. I'm going to that game for sure.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
I was just waiting to see what week that was gonna line up.
Are you gonna have family there?
What, in LA? I have a cousin there. Yeah, we went to a game last year. Who was that we went? That was the Raiders. That was the Raiders.
But none of your family from New Orleans are coming in?
Oh, no. We're planning it. So we're kind of getting it together to see who's gonna roll out there. But we're definitely gonna roll heavy. It might be a few of us. Nice. But just nothing better to be able to beat them in SoFi and rub it in their faces for a nice weekend trip out in LA. So we'll make it a good time. Clearly I have them beating the Saints because we ain't losing Derek Carr, man. And we're definitely not losing to a head coach whose team completely disrespected him at the end of last season. Do we see what James Winston did, in that last game of the season just to get his running back a touchdown? Completely ignored the coach's call. And it's just really weird. The players supported Jameis after it, and coach took a stance against it. But I think that team and that franchise is in disarray, and they're probably going to be that way for the next couple of years. They've got a wide receiver issue, although they do have Chris Olave, so definitely a weapon there. Alvin Kamara's situation is kind of weird right now. We'll see how that goes. I just don't think the Saints really know who they are, and Derek Carr will be itching to give the ball away, and I cannot wait to see it. He's a ticking time bomb, accident waiting to happen. Just bank on it. Set your clock to it. So with that being said, I think they come to SoFi and they leave with an embarrassing loss. I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout. I just need them to win so that I can have a good time rubbing it in my family's face. And you better not let me down.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of having that four-headed monster we talked about with guys that give the ball away like Derek Carr. So New Orleans, and I mentioned it to Craig and on this podcast. I love New Orleans. It is one of my favorite cities in the world. And I always root for any New Orleans team outside of my own teams. But New Orleans has been in NFL purgatory since Drew Brees left. They are just good enough to make the playoffs, get a wild card spot, lose, and then are habitually in cap hell that they can't really improve their roster too much in the draft or in free agency. And so the improvements are always minimal. They got lucky in a really nice draft class, but this year, a few years back, but this year, getting Talise Fuaga is going to help. My tackle one, love him. Signing Chase Young is going to help the pass rush, but this is a team that's going to hover around 500. I don't know that, that it's really going to be much better than last year. This game might be close, but I just don't think they got the firepower to compete. Olave is great, developing into a wide receiver one. Kamara is falling off a little bit, but I got the Chargers winning this one. I think it might be a little bit close, but ultimately Derek Carr is going to throw that game away. That's going to be easy. And you can bank on that because it happens every time. So I got the Chargers winning this one against New Orleans.
Yeah, the Saints are in a really bad way. And you mentioned Drew Brees, but also Sean Payton just screwed them totally. Left them high and dry. So it's a situation where it's also run like a mom and pop. Ms. Benson, the owner of the team, will not let go of that coaching staff. Like there are some loyalties there that are like she's loyal to a fault. Yep. I hear about it all the time. I've got cousins and family members who, like, when they call and complain about them, my dad said he does not want them to win a single game this year. That's how frustrated he is with them. So, let's help him out and give him the loss he's asking for. Contribute to it.
Absolutely. All right. So then it's week 9. They travel on the road. They had the game at home against the Saints. They go to Cleveland, who is loaded on paper. I mean, in past years, and it's funny looking at the schedule now because I feel like you could basically just take your same notes from every year, from the McCoy to the Lynn to the Staley era, and be like, look, if they got a good run game, they're going to run all over the Chargers and they're going to be in trouble. And whenever you get a guy like Nick Chubb, the matchup with Nick Chubb was always scary. And this year, with a new team that is focused on stopping the run, before we even see a snap of the new regime and how this run game and run D is going to be, we can only hope that things are different. And I tend to believe things will be different with Harbaugh. So I am going against all my, preconceived notions of the Chargers team and this run defense. So these two teams always end up putting arcade numbers up against each other. It is wild. It is fun to watch. It is stressful to watch, but man, there are points. And it's always who has the ball last. And this is a projected playoff team. It's going to be a tough one on the road. And I really do think they've improved defensively. So I think this is a tough one on the road. And I think they're going to go back and forth. I think the Browns have the ball last. They steal one at home, and the Chargers follow the Browns. Chargers lose this one.
Oh, man. Yeah, this was a rough one for me also because it feels like it's going to be one of those hard-nosed, rugged games. Like, the Chargers have played the Browns close without having a super physical, tough team. So now it's like the flip side of it. So are we talking about a lower scoring game where the Browns still pull it off? And I think that's going to be the difference. I agree with you. I think it's going to come down to a final possession, and I'd have the Browns winning the game as well. So I do have this as a loss for the Chargers, but I think ultimately it'll be very, very close. Watching what that team did with, wasn't it Joe Flacco for the majority of the season towards the end and still being as competitive as they were? Now, Nick Chubb's coming off of another really, really bad injury. But the Browns just always seem to find guys to continue on in like that ground and pound fashion. And I think Deshaun Watson, well, maybe this year he kind of finds his groove once again and maybe he stays healthy. So I think he'll do just enough along with whatever their running game looks like to put some real pressure on the Chargers defense. But again, also they've got a good defense of their own. So they're going to be looking to load the box up and stop the run if that's going to be the Chargers forte for next season and also in that particular game. So this one was a hard one. I think it's a coin flip. It could go either way, but on the road at Cleveland, I'm going to give them the slight nod just because they get that game at home.
Yeah, it'll be a competitive one. And Chubb, and I'm talking about years past when Chubb was on the schedule, you're like, he's going for 100. Mm-hmm. You can dial that in. But now I don't know that we'll see if how he does this season. I think we're going to see the fall off of Nick Chubb. It's going to be a shame because he's a hell of a running back, but I think this is the year we start to see the wheels fall off there. I mean, with another surgery again, I don't know how he is superhuman, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, he's come back from some pretty rough ones, man. But this, I don't know. You keep having those. Was this another lower extremity injury? Mm-hmm. Yep. Those things start to take a toll, and you play a physical position like running back. At some point, you have to slow down, even though he is superhuman. I think you're right. Yeah. You probably start seeing some of the effects this year. But if he doesn't, then they need to test him for alien blood or something.
All right. So after Cleveland, they get a stretch of 3 games at home. And the first matchup is against the Titans in Week 10.
It's a dub. Okay, first and foremost, you fired your head coach. Like, I know that they went through some organizational stuff, but to boot the type of head coach that you had because you were butting heads with the direction of the team, all right, that's one thing. But we cannot lose to Mr. Mayo himself. A guy who puts mayonnaise in his coffee should be arrested and never released.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that, I mean, was that verified? Did he just do that as a joke? What was the deal with that?
He says he's done it from time to time, but it's not a thing he does like every day. Like he's done it and liked it and he thinks it's cool, but isn't something like every morning he's doing mayo. But one time is a lockable offense. So yeah. I don't care.
For it to cross your mind, like I don't understand how, you go into the fridge, you open it, you see a jar of Miracle Whip and you think, that'd be good in my dark roast. Nah. But
yeah. And next to that mayo in his fridge are, body parts. Oh, so he moves those things out of the way and then grabs his mayo because he is a psychopath.
Very good point.
There's no normal human brain that thinks mayo can go in coffee. There isn't. That is a psycho, and that is a person that should be jailed.
Yeah, I think someone should investigate.
Yes.
I'm not snitching. I'm just saying we need to protect our fellow humans.
Yeah.
Just saying. But Tennessee did load up with regard to the wide receiver position. So, I mean, they got some older guys. You still got D-Hop. You got our boy, which we thought maybe they were going to give an opportunity to sign that just went over there recently. Name's escaping me right now. Tyler Boyd. Yep. And so they've also got some, there's no more King Henry. So that's one thing, but I still think they're going to run the ball. So they've got some pretty decent weapons back there. They got the running back. I'm forgetting everybody's name right now from the Cowboys last year that didn't have such a great
Tony
year.
Pollard.
Thank you. So I think they're going to be more of a space eating team. Probably going to spread it out a bit, toss the ball around the yard, and use some shiftier backs to create some mismatches out of the backfield in the passing game. So I think you're going to see a little bit different Tennessee Titans offense. It's going to potentially be more explosive, but on the outside, on the perimeters at wide receiver, it's not that they're going to be super fast. They're just going to have a lot of pretty good names of guys who are going to be good possession receivers. I think D-Hop is probably going to start seeing his decline here this year. But Boyd's going to be a nice big slot receiver that should be able to move the chains for him. So even though I think they're going to be a better offensive team, I still don't foresee them being like really that much of a juggernaut, whether on either side of the ball, because, oh, by the way, they signed Kenneth Murray. Someone actually decided to witness what that man did on a football field for the Chargers and seek him out to willingly give him money to be who he is for them. So that makes me question. I mean, besides drafting the dude who puts mayo in his coffee, you also went and signed a guy to play linebacker who can't really play linebacker.
Yeah.
Cool. So just poor life decisions all the way around. With that being said, there's no way in hell we're losing to the Titans. This is a W.
Not only signing Boyd, having Hop, they also got Calvin Ridley in the offseason. They signed L'Jarius Sneed. So, I mean, there were some nice moves in free agency, Murray not being one of them. And also had a pretty solid draft. J.C. Latham, Cedric Gray, the Texas interior lineman, Devondre Sweat. There's some nice pairing there in the draft. I liked it, but nobody sold on Will Levis. And a coffee and mayo aside, which, again, if anybody's listening, there's a hotline to call and report. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying you could. And we'll put the number in the chat there so you can call your local authorities. But
it's like Crime Stoppers.
Yes, it is. Dang it. What's the crime dog?
Oh, McGruff?
Yeah. Scruff. What's his first name? Scruff McGruff?
Was it Scruff McGruff? I just remember.
I couldn't remember his first name. Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652. That was his, I remember that was his address because that jingle, man, that thing like sticks in you. Anyway.
Yeah. The things you remember.
So, Will Levis ain't the guy. Even with the roster improving as it is, I think it will be a better team than last year, but not enough to beat the Chargers. I got this as a win. So then, next home game of the 3 home game stretch, it's against the Bengals. And like the Chargers last year, since he suffered a pretty huge in-season QB injury, they kind of fell apart, but both are back. Burrow and Herbert looking for something to prove this season for sure. A lot of animosity there. Both kind of chomping at the bit to get back at it. Bengals defense is mostly still intact. They got Geno Smith at free agency. They lost Tyler Boyd, but this is one of the top teams in the AFC with Burrow back. And this will be a prove-it game to see where they kind of stack up in the AFC, because this is one of the top teams you're going to have to go through if you want to, get to the end there in the playoffs. So I think this is a game that Harbaugh has everyone ready and bought in by here. They went on a stretch, won some games here. Now they know they've got the Ravens coming up, and I had them losing against the Steelers because they're kind of looking ahead for the Chiefs. I think they are ready. They are ready to roll here at home, and they beat a good Cincinnati Bengals team in Week 11.
Yeah, so here's the thing about this game. There's still reports that Joe Burrow may be dealing with an injury that he has for quite some time, so we don't know exactly how he's going to be rolling into this point of the season. We're talking Week 11, so a guy who's constantly has dealt with injuries throughout his career, getting to essentially like the midpoint of the year and being 100% or close to it after all that he's already dealt with. Yeah, I'm not too certain about it. Although they did make sure to go ahead and draft some protection for him. I think was that Amarius Mims they got in the first round this year, I want to say, to help protect Burrow. And the rest of the draft wasn't super impressive. They did get a guy in Tanner McLaughlin that we thought was pretty good for a late tight end guy that could be developmental for the Chargers. Potentially it didn't work out. And they drafted Matt Lee out of Miami, who was, I'm pretty sure, my center sleeper, but that kind of lends to my Miami Hurricanes bias, but never mind that. As far as the Bengals are concerned, no more Joe Mixon. You've got a wide receiver situation that could end up with their number 2 guy being potentially traded at some point. I don't know yet. It just feels like a team that's all over the place. And with that said, I don't know how organized they're going to be. And I don't have confidence that Burrow's even going to be playing that game or be 100%. With all these questions in the air, I can't go with us losing to the Bengals at all. I think that there isn't enough certainty. They're going to be trying to mix and match some things here and there. And I think there's probably some internal stuff going on with that team that's going to show its face, rear its ugly head there towards the mid portion of the season. So I got us winning that game.
Yeah, a team kind of feeling like they're taking a little bit of a slide and a lot of kind of plates in the air. Like they're spinning a lot of different things, losing Boyd, T. Higgins not being happy, looking to get traded. Their O-line is a little bit suspect, even though getting Mims was good, but I think they signed Trent Brown to play right tackle. There's a lot of issues going on. Lost Mixon. There's just there's a lot of question marks there in Cincinnati. So I could definitely see the Chargers taking this one in Week 11. So then here's our third game, Chargers at home. It's a Monday night game, and it's the Har Bowl. They're playing the Ravens, Week 12.
Brother versus brother. So it's been years since we've seen this. Last time, Super Bowl, whatever year that was. So, and hopefully the lights don't go off in this one. But either way, I think it's going to be a good matchup. You've got the guy who's been here for years without the NFL break, and John, who's had success again for years with a team that will know what the Chargers are going to want to do when they go into that matchup, which I think gives them a little bit of advantage, even though Mike McDonald isn't there any longer. You got a different defensive coordinator, but still the roots of what has built that team is there. They're entrenched in it. You've got another visit from your NFL MVP, Mr. Action Jackson. And I need to see that the Chargers are going to be better equipped to stop a mobile quarterback. This has always kind of been a bugaboo for them. The Ravens are going to give them a heavy dose of what they're wanting to do to teams this year. The only difference is, as much as we love Justin Herbert, he is not Mr. Jackson as far as athleticism is concerned. And so I do see this being one of those, hard-fought games. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. Zay Flowers is probably going to go to work. That's going to hurt my feelings at the end of time. You got a team that also likes to hoard tight ends, so they're going to be doing literally mirroring what the Chargers want to do to teams every week and what they see week in and week out at practice. I just think when it comes down to the experience of having done it and the pieces that have been in place there, I think Baltimore takes this game. Again, it's going to be another close one. I hate to see this happen in SoFi, but I do think the Ravens march in and get a win against the Chargers in Week 12. But I mean, it could literally be as low as a 3-point game, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this was the best team in football for a long time last year. Everybody's back, and they added Derrick Henry. It's going to be scrappy, and I know Jim's going to look for revenge when his brother bested him in the Super Bowl. But I just think the Ravens are just too talented. I think it's going to be really tough for the Chargers to match up. I think the Chargers are in year one of where they want to be, where the Ravens are currently. They're in a building process to build that culture and that team like the Ravens are currently built at their peak. Chargers are on the ground floor. So to me, they're both going to want to do the same thing. And I think the Ravens are better equipped to do that thing, which is run it down your throat and go heavy. And I just don't know that Chargers can do that. So I've got them losing on Monday night, but with a caveat to say, I don't think this will be the last time they see each other in the 2024 season. A playoff matchup of the Harbaugh brothers is what the script writers would want. And so having a second matchup where the Chargers, I don't know, get a wild card spot, the Ravens win their division, got to play each other, that just lines up for me. So again, I wasn't in the writing room. I don't know, but that just feels like an easy path when you go into the playoffs. And boy, would that be a fun matchup.
Yeah, for sure.
So now Chargers go on the road and they travel to Atlanta, and this will be a different looking Atlanta team. It'll be most likely Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix will probably be looking on, and probably be a redshirt season for Penix this season. But we've seen Cousins elevate offenses, at least during the regular season, at least, and elevate it to at least a little bit above average. Nothing too good, but enough to make, a Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts type offense look kind of fun, at least have the potential to be pretty fun. So the Chargers should beat the Falcons, but this feels like a game that might get away from them.
Trap game.
Kind of a trap game there. They are on have a bad taste in their mouth against the Ravens. They've got the Chiefs coming up again. This should be an easy win. But if you think about it, 2 seasons ago against the Falcons, they needed a Cameron Dicker field goal to beat Marcus Mariota. So this team is so much better than the Falcons on paper. The Chargers should absolutely manhandle them. This feels like a trap to me on the road. You've been comfortable at home for 3 weeks straight. I've got them losing this one. So Chargers lose in Atlanta. This is one of those games they should win, but end up losing, and it's not a good one.
Okay, so I understand why you pulled this one as a trap game. It makes sense also. And then you consider who they have the week after, and then it makes a little bit more sense. Mm-hmm. But I do have them winning this game, although I think it's going to be really entertaining to see what's happening at this point during the season. Kirk Cousins it's so funny. He's not a great QB, but if he's got really good weapons around him, it makes him look a little bit better than what he actually is, because Kirk's a pretty good decision maker, but in the clutch, he does some really funky things. I think as long as he's healthy, he's going to put up some pretty good numbers, because those dudes are pretty well stacked offensively. Besides Bijan Robinson, you still got Tyler Algier. Mm-hmm. They picked up Darryl Mooney. Drake London still out there. They got Rondale Moore. Literally speed all over the place. And then still, like you mentioned, Kyle Pitts, who we don't know who the hell Pitts is going to be. Maybe now they'll unlock him, but he just feels like the worst utilized tight end with the most talent I've literally ever seen in the NFL. So I think that there might be a QB issue around this time. And I wouldn't be shocked if Michael Penix is playing in that game. And even then, I could understand why you could still find that to be the trap game, because if you don't really know who Penix is at that point, let's say he's only been playing a week or two, he can come out there and really sling the ball around. He's got a really good arm. And again, I think the play will be elevated by the weapons that they've added to the team. Even with that said, I still think the Chargers make it happen with this one, because I don't think that the Falcons are going to be a physical enough team. I feel like they're going to still be more finesse, and this is going to be one of those styles win fights type games, and they'll probably be able to keep the Falcons off the field with time of possession, and you won't see as many of the high-flying antics as what those weapons on that team would suggest. So I think the Chargers play a pretty good game of keep away, and the score is probably low, but I think they pull out a W there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they should definitely beat them. And Penix coming in is an interesting little wrinkle. I don't know. We'll see if, Atlanta's even being competitive at that point. But if you've got a guy like Lamar Jackson and You see him run all over the Chargers, and you've got an athletic quarterback sitting there on your bench and thinking, hey, man, I think there's some pages we can steal from that script from a week ago, and you're really watching the tape. That could make some sense. I don't know that they do that, but I could see a world where that happens. And look, they drafted Penix high for a reason. And I know they gave a bunch of money to Cousins, but if he's not the future, he's not the future. And Cousins definitely isn't the future. They want to be competitive now. And if he can't keep them competitive now at his age, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're at the home stretch of the season. There's 5 games left, and all 3 of the interdivisional rivals are up in these 3 out of the last 5 games. So the kind of trap game we were talking about, Sunday Night Football. The Chargers travel to Arrowhead, and I know we'll keep these division rivals pretty quick because we already talked about them a little bit, but how you got this going in Week 14?
So Chargers going to Arrowhead with a point to prove, and I think Jesse Minter shines in this game. I think he just needs to see Mahomes and get a feel for that Chiefs offense one time, and then he'll be stewing on it for weeks, looking for the opportunity to get back again. I think by this point, you'll start to see some of the guys on defense that maybe were question marks earlier in the year, some rookie guys, maybe even some of the guys that are on their 1-year deals have really kind of solidified themselves to this point, and you'll probably start seeing really solid secondary play. And it's going to be necessary. Provided you have at least 3 of your edge rushers, I think that you'll be able to create enough pressure on Mahomes to where you'll get him, out of sorts a bit, and dude makes plays off script. We know that's kind of his thing. But I think the Chargers will be able to do enough with maintaining integrity in their coverage and pass rushing that they're going to force Mahomes into a couple bad turnovers. And hopefully this year they aren't overturned on bogus calls by the refs. But I think, again, this is going to be like the Minter coming out party, and this is where he's going to solidify himself as one of, I don't want to get ahead of my skis here, but an ascending defensive coordinator in the league. And the Chargers walk in the Arrowhead and they pull out a win. I do think it'll be close, but I think they win it on a defensive play. I think they end the game on a pick or a forced fumble.
Hell yeah. I love this, man. You get me hyped. I love that. Jesse Minter getting into his groove, Week 14, trying to make this playoff push. Got Mahomes in Arrowhead. I don't have it that way. I think they lose, and I think Kansas City sweeps the series, but I love the feeling of having Minter getting the swing of things. And I'm really hoping that's what happens, because he's a big question mark, and I know he was everybody's excited about him. Can't wait to see what he does on the football field and what he does with this defense. And it's only just the beginning, because it feels like this is just year one. I talked about them being on the ground floor. This is just the year one of kind of retooling this Chargers team. So I've got them losing in Arrowhead. It's just too tough of a place to play, and they are back-to-back Super Bowl champions for a reason. So I got them losing this, and Chiefs sweeping the series. You got them splitting the series.
Yeah.
All right. So then they go back home, had 2 on the road, and they are playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know Baker Mayfield got the Bucs to the 4th seed last year, and it was a fun little story. And
that division was trash.
You jumped right ahead of me. They were 9-8, man. The NFC South sucks. Don't let them fool you. This roster is the same as last year for the most part. They got Graham Barton in the draft, which is a nice little centerpiece for the future, but no one's afraid of this team. This team is not good. There are some fun elements of this defense, but they're no good. I think it's going to be kind of close, but Chargers are going to take this one at home. For me, losing 3 in a row, they stop the skid right here, and they know they got to make a real run here to make the playoffs. They beat the Buccaneers.
So the Falcons were your trap game. Tampa Bay's mine. Coming off of the high of the Chiefs game and all the emotion involved in that, being a Sunday night football game, I could see them having Tampa Bay come in and not saying they won't be up for the game. I just can see them being in a situation where they're still kind of spent from everything it took to get that win against Kansas City. Baker Mayfield, I don't know, man. Gotta give him credit. The dude figures it out. Almost everywhere he goes. There are a couple of situations and scenarios that haven't worked out for him that I don't really put all on him. his personality is kind of weird. He can be likable, and then he can just be like the most ridiculously immature dude you've ever come across as an adult. But I think that in this game, I don't know why, but it feels like for all the good that the Chargers secondary did against the Chiefs, they're gonna lay an egg against Tampa Bay, and Baker's gonna have a good game passing the ball. He's gonna get the ball out of the backfield into his running back's hands, allow him to do his thing in the open field. And I just think that they're flat this week after the game against the Chiefs. So I have them losing against Tampa Bay. I hate the way that feels, but again, I think that week 14 game is going to be one of the best games of the entire NFL season. And they'll probably still be, I'm not going to say reeling because I have them winning. But again, everything that they had to expend to put into that game, I think comes back to haunt them a week later.
All right. So there's your trap game in week 15 for Craig. It's against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They get a second home game back-to-back here. Week 16, they play the Broncos. How about this one? You have them losing in Mile High.
Yeah, they're splitting. So again, I don't even feel confident in that loss since Mile High. It's just Mile High.
Yeah. No, I got you.
Why.
Yeah.
So for this one, definitely W. They're going to start asking questions about Sean Payton after this season. I really feel like it, and I think we may have dodged a bullet, by the way. Talks. He would have come in and wanted it to be done his way. Who knows what the heck that would have meant as far as the roster is concerned. I mean, they wouldn't have been trading the quarterback. I know that. So maybe it would have been a little bit different, but just the way that Sean Payton manages things, and it's like pretty much all in his shoulders. And when things start to go haywire, he has shown a tendency to retreat. I just think there's going to be a lot going on with Denver. I don't think they're going to have a great year. I could see them even moving off of some pieces during the season while he's still trying to build a team up in the exact image that he wants. I'm not certain what the identity of Denver is going to be next year, but I assume they want to be more balanced. But the Broncos just don't scare me offensively. Bo Nix, I mean, look, I still see the dude at Auburn. I understand that he went to Oregon. He played in that wide open offense, and he had some weapons to spread the ball around to, whether it be Bucky Irvin out of the backfield, or you've had your wide receivers that you could kind of like wide receivers aplenty, just speed all over the place, and playmakers in the offense that was kind of catered to him being able to get the ball out to some really fast guys who can make it happen in the open field. Again, Denver doesn't scare me. I think their defense will be a little bit better than what they were. They'll probably get on track there, but I see the Chargers taking it to Denver at home. So this is a W for me.
All right. I'm going to keep it sweet, man. Bo Nix stinks. And I'm going to double down on that. I think the Chargers win and they get the sweep. I just don't think he's any good. And I don't think the Broncos are any good on paper. And when you put a middling low-end quarterback on a roster that cannot help elevate him at all, it's just a lose-lose there in Denver, and Peyton is running this team into the ground. So I've got them sweeping the Denver series. And then they finish off the season on the road in back-to-back games. The first one is at New England. The Pats will most likely at this point probably have Drake May starting. You kind of get the feeling that maybe Jacoby Brissett is going to start early on, but I think at this point he's going to be the starter. And this roster is not good. Their wide receiver room is Juju, Cedric Bourne, Jalen Polk, and that's worse than the Chargers. That will not get it done with a rookie quarterback. They need another down year, like I talked about with Carolina. They have got to load up on that roster. I like Gerard Mayo. I hope him success, but he's going to need a couple of years of building that roster up because this is no good on paper. Chargers are trying to make a playoff run, and so they and the Patriots are most likely playing for a high draft seed at that point. This is a easy win in New England against the Patriots.
Everybody's going to hate me for this. I have this as a loss. I have this as a loss, but here's why. Look at the date. It's December 28th or 29th in New England. Now, the Chargers team of old was finesse, and running the ball wasn't really going to be an option. I don't suspect that'll be a problem this time around. I just have a feeling that this is going to be a weather game. And though the Chargers style of offense should travel and also perform well in weather games, being that they're going to lean on their running game, it's New England, man. It's Gillette. It feels like something stupid is bound to happen here. Not that the Patriots would just kind of like dominate them by any means. I just feel like some weird plays are going to happen. Weird turnovers, mishandling of the ball, guys fumbling, dropping passes, tip passes. It's going to be a low scoring game that the Chargers find a way to lose because of, I mean, in some cases, unforced errors, but I think it's going to be heavily dependent on the weather. This game rides totally on what the forecast is for me. So this could easily be a win. I think it all comes down to weather. If it's like decent football weather, Chargers win. But I'm looking at that date and I'm thinking about where it is, and I don't know if it's snow situations, rainy, some sort of wintry mix. I don't know how to feel about that too much. So for right now, I have it as a loss, but I don't say that with any confidence. The Chargers should win this game, but again, it's kind of weather dependent.
All right, so the Chargers start their season with the Raiders and are ending their season with the Raiders. So they were at home to start the season. Now they go to Vegas, finish off this 2-game road games back-to-back here. And in the last game of the season, week 18, they travel to Vegas, play the Raiders.
I mean, is there very much to say about this? We're going to walk into the toilet bowl and slap y'all around.
Okay.
We're going to go. Your season's going to end. I mean, it's probably over already. Y'all more than likely won't be competing for anything. Yeah. But I think we lay it on thick here just to make you forget all about that game that you guys are hanging on to. And I don't even know. I mean, at this point, this would put them at 10-7. So, they'd be in playoff contention, I think. But still, there are going to be guys in the game. I don't think it's a situation where like they've wrapped anything up and guys are sitting. I don't even know how Harbaugh is going to handle that quite yet. But even still, I think regardless as to who plays, they just go in and decide that they want to embarrass the Raiders because guys have pride to play for. And Tom, you really went to Vegas? Like, bro. Like, I guess you take your gigs where you can get them. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a revenge tour against the Raiders all season long because the fans are insufferable. You guys have been walking around with your chest poked out about a win that, I mean, I guess you earned it. I mean, you played the game, but again, there's no context there when you're not considering who was available to play in said game for the Chargers. So I personally have a vendetta against y'all, and I hope that we stump a mud hole in you. And there's no way I'm giving you a win, period, at all. I mean, they could literally be playing in the same type of weather as the New England game somehow, some way. I mean, I know that wouldn't happen in Vegas and like they're in a dome, but it wouldn't matter. You guys aren't beating us this year. Get used to it. And I plan on like memeing the hell out of you all year long. So be prepared.
Well, I got them splitting the series, and I have them losing this game because I feel like they've already locked up a playoff spot. I feel like they're resting starters. I feel like it kind of feels good because it's going to ruin their draft chances. And Chargers are already going to have a wild card spot locked up, and I don't think they have much to play for, and they want to risk the injury. So I've got them losing this game. Now, if they're playing starters, this is a win. This is a dub for me. But I think this is where they kind of just let it go. It's on the road. They'll play some of their depth guys, and it might be close. But that's where I have it. And before we give our record, Craig, we got on late. What did Craig, my son, say about the Saints game?
I said what you should be proud of. You should be right along there with me. You don't want them to win at all. So, again, we're doing you a service. So you should be smiling right about now.
We both had them losing that game. So I hope that helps. And for our final record prediction, it is me, 10-7. Craig, 10-7. So we got the Chargers most likely making the wild card here at 10-7.
I tell you what, I heard what you said about the Vegas game, and I totally get it. I just can't give them a win.
No, I got you.
I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it. But there are also there are at least 1 or 2 games in here that I feel like could easily flip, and you're looking at an 11-6 situation. Now, I know some people are going as far as 12-5. I'm not quite ready to go there. I feel like it's a safe 10-7 play, maybe on the higher end, 11-6. So again, either way, I don't think you can go wrong. But Jim has a history of walking into organizations and turning them around. And I don't feel like this is going to be any different.
No. And 10-7 would be turning this team around. From a top 5 pick to 10-7 wildcard team, that's just what a Jim Harbaugh would do. And we think he will. So, everybody, thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys tuning in and joining us for almost this hour and a half. Thanks so much. Make sure you subscribe everywhere and join the Patreon, get in that Discord, and we will see you next time.
Salute.
We don't have the thanks, everybody, because Craig's not here, but thanks, everybody.
I am here.